Hello and welcome to Perspectivas Latinas, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernández. Since the first war in Iraq, there has been a constant call to support our veterans as they face physical or mental trauma and other serious issues. Some are simply dealing with the difficulty of adjusting to being back home. This August 12th, the I Say Foundation, together with the City of Chicago and the State of Illinois and other organizations, will hold the Illinois Warrior Summit at Soldier Field. The idea is to celebrate servicemen and women, but also offer them a step forward in creating a new life. And here to talk about the summit, we have James Flagg, the president of Support All Veterans Equally, and Rodolfo Ceja, a volunteer with the organization. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, first of all, let's talk about both of you. Let's start with Rodolfo. Tell me about yourself and when you served and what military branch and your experience as a veteran returning home.
Well, I'm native from Chicago, Illinois. I'm actually been living here. I went in the little village area my entire life. I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18, right after high school. I did 2 tours to Iraq, 14 months each, so about 28 months. I was in Iraq, Fallujah, Baghdad, and Ramadi. And when I got back home, I got a good transition to go back to the civilian role and get all of my paperwork done, everything through school, because I actually had someone that was there. They knew how to do all the paperwork and everything, and she had been through the same process before as well.
So it was something that it was an easier transition for you, despite all being in combat.
It was an easy transition for me since before I got out of the service. I took care of everything. I did all the jobs that I needed to do. I went to see the doctors and everything. I talked about everything that I had going on in my life. So by the time I got here, it was already out.
Okay, so a good support system.
A support system.
James, tell me about your experience in the military.
It's a little bit different from Rodolfo. I'm James Flagg, Army veteran. Started off in field artillery, did a little infantry work. I actually signed up for the Illinois National Guard on 52nd and Cottage Grove here in Chicago, August 31st, 2001, a few days before 9/11.
Wow.
I was in the military for a total of 8 years, split between the Illinois National Guard, the U.S. Army active duty units, and my Illinois National Guard Reserve unit. And my job, as I mentioned, was field artillery and infantry, but I also had a chance to work in the strategic planning shop. At the end of my 6.5 years before my inactive reserve time, I was, completely ready to get out of the military, to be honest. And unlike Rodolfo, I don't know if it was just the quality of my transition program or if I was just in such a rush to get back home to my family and friends, but my transition as far as connecting with benefits and resources was a little bit difficult because I did not have that strong military support system, exiting out of the military. But unlike many of our transitioning veterans, I had a strong family support system, which was, very welcoming and very assisting when I was making that transition back from active duty.
So despite maybe your rush or whatever lack there was, your family filled in?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So tell me about what you're doing now that you've transitioned back into civilian life. And
well, the first step, like many veterans, if there is no ample employment available, the best way to receive any type of support is to go to school to take advantage of your post 9/11 GI Bill benefits or whatever education benefits that you were afforded through the military. So I came back home, I finished up my associate's degree, ended up completing my bachelor's degree, and while a student in my undergrad, I formed a student veterans group with a few of my other classmates and military comrades, and we began working within the UIC community, my University of Illinois Chicago community, doing veterans outreach, connecting with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and that ended up transitioning into almost a full-blown idea of supporting military veterans upon their transition. So with that, we, in my senior year, actually 3 weeks before I graduated college, we hosted the first annual Illinois Warrior Summit back in March of 2010, where we did something never heard of before, where we combined a benefit fair, VA, Department of Veterans Affairs Resource Fair, and education fair under one roof.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a bit, but I want to hear a little bit from Rodolfo. How did After your transition back into civilian life, now what are you doing, and how
Well,
did you get to this point?
I did 6 years of active duty. After that, I went back and did 2 more in the reservists. Then I actually came back, went to the community college, Richard Daley, and then I transferred over to Robert Morris University. The reason why I got a good transition for me from school to school, it was because of him. He's actually a military rep there, so he actually helped me through the whole process and everything. For me
Robert Morris?
Robert Morris.
Yes, sir.
For me to get all my benefits and everything. I've been in Robert Morris for about a year. I got my bachelor's and I'm currently working my master's. And the great support that I got pretty much from Robert Morris was because of him, because he knew everything that was going on and the type of things they were able to get.
Okay, wow. Now let's return to the Illinois Warrior Summit, and it's kind of a two-event summit, right? It's a welcome home celebration and a summit, right?
Yes, yes and no. It's actually 3 components.
3 components. Okay.
We have the Warrior Summit component, which is anything but the VA services, which is the welcome home component. So the welcome home celebration is controlled by the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Okay.
So it's the Illinois Warrior Summit welcome home celebration, and the 3rd component is the Valor Games Midwest, which is a sporting event competition for ill, wounded, and injured military veterans.
Okay, well, tell me about the summit and the celebration. What's going to be happening at the summit? Who's organizing it? And tell me that.
Well, the Welcome Home celebration is actually mandated everywhere that there's a VA facility in the United States, and what that is exactly what the title speaks to: welcoming home all returning veterans from active duty, and helping them with that transition back into civilian society. The Welcome Home celebration assists with connecting the veterans not only with VA support, but different organizations, nonprofit organizations that offer other community resources. The Illinois Warrior Summit component added a different twist to that event because we combined the VA support with the nonprofit organizations with support from educational institutions for connecting with education benefits, as well as businesses looking to hire veterans. Over the past 3 years that we've been working on this concept, it has expanded from benefits, education, and employment to now housing, legal, disability services, mental health and emotional health or suicide prevention, child and family services, as well as religious and faith-based services.
So it's actually a all-encompassing offering of information.
Yes, sir. And it's I know the term's been used over and over again, but it is, a one-stop shop type of concept.
Holistic, maybe?
Holistic, all comprehensive, as you said, where a veteran doesn't have to go to different housing agencies or different businesses looking to hire vets. Instead, we bring the businesses to include the VA services out of their facilities, and they connect with the veterans right there on the spot, making that transition a little bit smoother.
Okay, Rodolfo, tell me how you became part of this summit and why you're part of it.
Oh, I became part of the summit, talking to him, obviously. We were talking about it, and I know a lot of veterans that didn't get a transition that I got, like me, so I wanted to help them out as well. That's when I got involved. I started talking to him about it. We started talking about iSafe first. I found out what iSafe was. I volunteered for iSafe, and then we came out with the Warrior Summit was coming up, so we started to volunteer for the Warrior Summit to get everything ready. Like you say, it's an all-stop shop from employment all the way to the benefits and everything in between. So we decided to put it together so these veterans, they don't have a chance to get a good transition like I did. They could get a good transition. We're trying to also help all these people that are outside, they're all these homeless veterans, for them to get a housing and hopefully a good job as well. Okay,
touching on what you're saying about homeless veterans, besides that issue, what are some of the greatest issues that veterans face? Any one of you can
Well, other than the PTSD, post-traumatic stress, is a big issue. And I guess we as a community, we need to learn how to deal with these issues. Just because they can't go crazy, they're not going crazy. They're actually going through a moment, something they saw that was kind of painful for them and everything. So we as a community, we need to learn what's PTSD and how we could help them to integrate back to the community. That's a big issue. And talking about VA, all the benefits being right now pushed back because of the sequestration. So that's another big issue, that these veterans are getting their benefits held back because of all of this, and meanwhile they're suffering.
Okay. What are PTSD is one of the issues which ties into a high suicide rate.
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, sir. And as Rodolfo mentioned, PTSD is a huge trigger for a lot of the troubles that veterans have transitioning. There are many cases and studies that show that, because of the issues with traumatic brain injury and PTSD, that may transition or cause a veteran to go down a path where they aren't employable, or they do, not take advantage of their benefits, and they end up losing their homes or their families and become homeless. And then ultimately, if you have veterans without resources or benefits, they're out committing crimes, so they end up incarcerated. And, there are many veterans, and it's at an alarming rate, coming back home and committing suicide because they don't have the know-how or the resources to deal with their issues, or a point of contact to connect them with their services that they need.
Okay, so you at this summit you offer information to help veterans, and not just veterans but their families and friends as well, right?
Yes, sir. It's a all-inclusive event, so it's 100% free and open to the general public. But we as veterans understand that, in a moment's notice, if you're still active duty, you may be called back to service at any time. So for those veterans that, either have work obligations or military commitments, we offer the event to their spouses, to their dependents, to their other family members, so that if I'm deployed overseas, my mom, my dad, my brother can come to the Warrior Summit, get the information for me, relay it to me wherever I am overseas, and that way when I am transitioning back, I already have a leg up on where these services are.
Okay.
Just to top that up, since they're there, the family and things like that, let's say I'm getting ready to deploy, and if I was, I'm not married, but if I was married, and my wife will need the help to get a power of attorney, something like that, that's why they're there, to help them out. So with this, what we put legal, children, family, everything there, so they could come over and they could see the resources that are available for them as a family member of an active personnel or a veteran.
Okay, tell me about an individual or a family that was greatly served by this summit and the celebration that you recall from your experience in this. Is there somebody that's come to you or sent you an email or a letter that's said, thank you so much for this, it helped me do? Tell me about a story like that.
Geez, there's so many. I hope I could think of one particular story to pinpoint at the moment.
Or a couple.
A few. We do have a number of testimonials, either through video or handwritten notices. Where and I won't mention individuals' names.
No, you don't have to.
Yeah, but where if they don't contact us directly, they go back out to the VA and they say, hey, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to connect with these services, because you have to think Chicago and the state of Illinois is so big. And there are so many organizations. I think there are over 500 veteran support organizations here in the state of Illinois. And they're so far spread apart that people, even with reliable transportation, can't connect with these different organizations. And for the simple fact that we not only have, one or two target resources in one central location, but up to 9 and 10. And then we mix it in with family-friendly activities, entertainment. We provide free raffles for anything and everything, to include vacations, computers, laptops, book scholarships for students, TVs, barbecue grills, even gift certificates to some of your favorite restaurants. So everybody, if they don't walk away with information, they're walking out with something in their hands. So the most pride we get, obviously, this is a Chicago town, a big sports town. The Cubs and the White Sox have been big supporters of this organization for the past 3 years now, and we have a block of 2,000 tickets for the White Sox at the Warrior Summit that we're just giving out to the veterans, and a block of 2,000 tickets for the Chicago Cubs that we give out. So even if
no
the
Bulls
veterans,
or Bears,
not yet. We're still working on those. Those are a little bit harder to come by. Plus, they're out of season right now.
Right.
So if we don't get veterans to come, for the resources, we get many people to come just for the sporting tickets alone. So I get a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls. Hey, never had a chance to go to a game before, but now not only do I have a chance to go, but I could take my children, I could take my family with them. So with Chicago being such a huge sport town, that's a big perk for the event as well.
I mean,
awesome.
I know he topped the White Sox and the Cubs, but let's not forget about the Chicago Sky
Yes, sir.
and the Chicago Slider. They're actually providing tickets for us to give away for them to go see them as well.
Yes, sir.
So it's several teams. It sounds to me like all these organizations, even professional sports teams, coming and
Supporting us with
supporting, right? Wrapping around veterans and their needs.
Yes, sir. And you know, going back to the theme of the event, you know, it's supporting all veterans. And, you know, not only are the veterans getting a chance to connect with these businesses or connect with these sports teams, but the businesses are also getting a chance to interact with other businesses as well. So it's a perk, you know, not only for the businesses to connect with the vets, but we've seen examples of, you know, different companies and organizations partnering up at the Warrior Summit to go on and produce initiatives or different events outside of this one-day event. And it's the same for the sporting teams as well. You know, with the number of charities that these sporting teams have, it's a great way to give back not only to the community but particularly to the veteran community.
Okay, let's get into the history. You did tell me a little bit about the history of this event. Whose idea was it exactly, and tell me about iSave as well. But let's start with whose idea this was. Mm-hmm.
Well, back in 2007, 2008, as Rodolfo said, there was you know, a very large backup as far as the VA paying out benefits to military veterans. Mm-hmm. So with that, you know, many veterans weren't getting paid on time. So that means their bills weren't getting paid on time. That means utilities, you know, their family support was getting cut off due to the shortage of funding. Mm-hmm. And although the VA was ramping up their efforts to provide these services for vets, there was still some veterans, unlike myself, because again, I mentioned I had that strong family support, but my business partner and co-founder, Mr. Robert Malnick, who was one of those gentlemen who was, you know, working on his marriage after transitioning back, but he was going to his landlord and to, you know, his cable company and his utility company saying, hey, my veterans benefits aren't here. Can you give me a little bit more time? And, you know, a lot of businesses and organizations are empathetic, but at the same time, they still want the money for their services. So as student vets, you know, Rob and I, we were sitting around one day actually studying for physics, and he said, you know what, I'm sick of this. It's no reason why we have to wait so long to connect with our benefits, why we have to jump through so many hoops, go one location to get the paperwork, go to a different location to get it certified, only to send it back, and that's a very time-consuming process. So the concept actually started with changing the way that veteran students were treated at the University of Illinois Chicago. So we formed a task force outlining all of the issues that we were having as individual students, and the dean of students at the time said, you know what, there's a good chance that if you guys are experiencing this, the 800 or 900 veterans on campus, it's a good percentage that may be feeling the same effects. So we put together an executive summary outlining a plan to combine all resources in one central location for veterans. Once that plan was implemented, you know, UIC began taking the steps to make that happen. Well, along the way, after Governor Quinn transitioned into office, one of my buddy Rob's commanding officers in Iraq got a hold of that executive summary. That executive summary was actually put into state legislation in March of 2008, and it was called the Veterans Higher Education Bill of Illinois, which mandates that all public institutions in the state have one central location for all veterans resources. So you're starting to see the recurring theme. So we took that idea and that concept, and as a matter of fact, this was right around the time we began, you know, hosting our own show here at CAN TV, and we were meeting great organizations, great nonprofit organizations and businesses that supported vets, and we were volunteering for the Welcome Home celebration with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we approached the VA and said, hey, you know, CAN TV has given us an outlet to connect with these veterans organizations. How about we make this event more impactful and not only just do VA services and a few nonprofits, but make it all encompassing to the community. And luckily for us, the VA, you know, they said, hey, what do we have to lose? It's only going to help us increase our outreach, and that partnership was formed. Well, lo and behold, back then I had no idea, but nothing like this had ever been done before. Wow. And not only did we increase the visibility of the event, but we increased the attendance so much that myself and my buddy Rob were flown out to DC on behalf of Student Veterans America, and we were honored with the Presidential Award for Voluntary Excellence.
Oh, that's congratulations.
So, yes, sir. So thank you very much. It was a very, honorable award, and honestly, up until that point, we were still planning on going off with our traditional college path, go to graduate school,
Right.
work in corporate America or whatever we were going to do. But at that point, once we came back to Chicago from D.C., there were a lot more people that, had a vested interest in what we were doing. And, I decided to forego my college plans for graduate school. Rob dropped out of his master's program, and we began, taking the steps to incorporate iSave and working on this full time. And since then, it's only gained momentum. More supporters brings, more attention, and now we finally have people like Rodolfo and other team members or staff members who can assist with, the day-to-day operations to keep this thing going.
Okay, well, tell me about how are the day-to-day operations for this event, and Rodolfo, and also tell me about some of the highlights that people should look for if they're thinking about going with a family member or if they're just curious about supporting veterans more deeply. Tell me about
Well, at the everyday ones, we had to make, obviously we're a non-profit, so we're self-funded pretty much. So in order to do this event, we had to raise money. So the everyday operations pretty much, I help Rob raise money. That's what we've been doing. We've been trying to raise money, and we got some great sponsors out there. So they've been giving us money, and we're almost at the point that we have enough money for the event to happen. On top of that, I help Rob with employers. So I'm responsible for calling organizations to see they want to hire veterans. If they say yes, we provide it with all the information so they could come over to the summit, set up a table, and tell us how many people they're looking to hire and everything, so we could put it out there and let them know. Like, for example, you're interested in working for Walmart. Walmart would tell us there's 20 open positions for this and this, and we're in charge to put it out there so people know that Walmart is looking to hire 20 people in this specific location, and this specific type of job. Our hours are all depends. Sometimes we work all day long, from 8 in the morning to about 2 in the morning, and come back again at 6 in the morning. But I mean, it has to happen. I'm in school right now in the mornings, get out of school, go straight over there, work for about 5 hours with them, and come back for my evening class. And it's like we had to do it in order to get it done. And on top of that, a lot of these great organizations have provided for us like a lot of things to give out to the veterans as well. We're providing, 2,000 bags? 2,000 bags that we're gonna fill with different stuffs that they're giving to us by CRUD and Walmart. So we're in charge of putting all these bags together so they could be ready to give away to the veterans as well.
Okay, and when at the event now, they're going to be giving out these bags, but what events or what's going to be happening at the summit that people should look for or look forward to?
Well, one main attraction, there's always food. We're going to have food for everybody. We have enough food for 10,000 people.
10,000
That's
people?
our goal, to have 10,000 people in there.
Gourmet food or hot dogs, hamburgers?
Hamburgers and hot dogs.
Okay.
So our goal is to have 10,000 people there. On top of that, we're going to provide refreshments as well. We got naked food, Capri Sun, things like that we're going to be giving away. Like he said, he talked about the raffles. We're going to raffle in gift cards, TVs, different things that a lot of the sponsors are giving to us.
Wow.
And we're going to give them back to the veterans so they could take something back. On top of that, we're going to be giving the tickets away to them, and then they get to interact with all these benefits. From dental, I mean, we're looking from the VA, we're talking about from dental to healthcare. So they get to stop there, and let's say that he's a returned veteran from Iraq, and he doesn't go to school and he wants to go to school, he could start his paperwork there.
Right there at the summit?
Right there on the spot. That's the whole point of it. And another big thing that we have, I know a lot of people go to their job first and they get told, go online and apply there. That's not going to happen in the World Summit. They agree that whoever goes to them, they will take their applications. If they're qualified, they will try to do a spot interview for them.
Wow.
So that's one of the things that we're doing. They're going to try to do spot interviews right there, and they get to apply for them with the employer right there. They don't have to go back online and do it later. And other than that,
Yeah, I could add to it. So in addition to the VA services that are provided by the local Jesse Brown Hospital, Hines VA facility in Lovell out in Great Lakes, the veterans could come and register for their VA services or VA benefits. So that's everything from disability claims to actually processing to getting, supportive services and programs. As Rodolfo touched on the employer aspect, we do have IDS out, registering people for unemployment. So if they don't have, employability or employment available, they can register for unemployment services. There will be close to 200 organizations. So the big thing is just to connect them with the organizations. But the third component, as I mentioned before, is the Valor Games Midwest.
Okay, tell me about that.
And Valor Games Midwest is funded and started by World Sports Chicago, which is the legacy program to the 2016 Olympic bid. After we didn't get the bid, after Chicago didn't get the bid, World Sports Chicago took some of the leftover funding and decided that they wanted to give back to the community in the realm of disability services. So what World Sports Chicago is doing in conjunction with the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Commission is flying in 200 ill, wounded, and injured athletes from predominantly the Midwest region, but all over the country, and they're participating in a number of different Paralympic events. Wow. From cycling to shot put to discus throw to archery to powerlifting to rowing, and it's a very spirit building. It's a competitive event to get the veterans who may not want to just attend another job fair or another housing fair, but is really looking for an opportunity to get out of the house, be competitive again and engage with some of their other peers. This sporting event competition helps them do that, and actually by them being in conjunction with the Paralympics, they're working with those particular entities to prepare some of these injured veterans for the Paralympic bids that take place overseas or in different countries throughout the world.
Okay, awesome. We're getting close to running out of time here. What do you recommend for veterans who might not be able to make it to the summit? How can they follow up those that do go, or maybe go a little late, or those that can't make it at all?
The best bet, obviously we're in a technology age where the internet is dominating everything. So the veterans can go to IllinoisWarriorSummit.com online, and all of the organizations from the VA to the different nonprofits to the educational institutions will be listed on that website with hyperlinks to their respective business websites. So that's one great way to connect with the services. The second best way, I would say, connect with your local VA Vet Center or go to the Department of Veterans Affairs. By us working so closely with them, the VA has access to connecting these veterans with different services as the veteran requires them. So the best bet, if they don't have friends that are attending that could bring the information back to them, predominantly the website or the VA services, and if not, I'm more than willing to extend myself to connect with anybody that can't make it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this information with here with our audience. James.
Thank you very much, sir, for having us.
Rodolfo.
Appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Perspectivas Latinas is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Perspectivas Latinas for local issues and concerns every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernández. Thank you for joining us.